heard the saying improving by 1% every single day in terms of self-improvement, personal growth, self-growth, that kind of thing. But what does 1% every single day actually look like? What does it actually mean? And is it actually possible? And so I feel like this is like a common sort of saying, a common kind of sentence that gets said in this kind of niche. And again, probably the first time I heard it, I just took it as if you drink 5 bottles of water a day and 1 can of Coke, you then eventually get up to them 6 bottles of water, no cans of Coke, etc. You know, that kind of thing. You know, if you eat clean maybe 90% of the time, you start trying to do it 100% of the time. But how is it possible to kind of gauge what 1% actually means? Because I find it to be very hard in whatever it is you're trying to do in life to gauge that 1%, you know, whether it's starting the gym, eating clean, improving your finances, relationship-wise, friends, family, whatever it might be, what does 1% look like in that? And I was thinking a little while ago, you know, say if someone who never goes to the gym, never eats clean, doesn't drink much water, again, they're trying to get themselves sorted, trying to get themselves on track, and they want to be more healthier. Let's say that person starts the gym. What is that as a percentage to their life? Because let's say they start the gym, and then they start going regularly, maybe 3 days a week, 4 days a week. Then they start eating cleaner. Then they start drinking more water, start cutting out processed foods, whatever. Like, what is that as a percentage? Because it's all good saying improve by at least 1% every day, 37 times better a year, something like that. But for me, if that person who's never gone to the gym in their life starts the gym, and then from that, they meet new friends, meet a relationship, maybe get a job through meeting someone there. Again, these are all different things, but that could be, 50%, 100% improvement on their life? Because through the gym, they've met people, they've started eating clean, drinking water, cutting out processed foods. Do you know what I mean? Like, what could that be as a percentage? Because I think for each different person, it's totally different. Because then what happens to the person who already goes to the gym, already eats clean, already drinks water, already budgets the finances, has all that under control, relationship, that's perfect, everything's perfect, more or less. I know it doesn't exist, but let's just say everything's perfect. What does a 1% improvement look like for them? What does any improvement look like for them? So I think just in general, this whole improve by 1% every single day, as much as it's a nice way to sort of saying, keep going, keep improving, you know, it all adds up in the end, which is great, but it's almost kind of like a false narrative that it's possible to improve by 1% every day. A lot of the time, there's no such thing as improvement, it's more just keeping the discipline and just repeating the good habits. If anything, that's kind of like a 1% improvement. You know, say if I wake up, read, journal, take my food to work, blah, 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 go to work, have a good day, hit all my targets, whatever, go home, normal day, and I repeat that 7 days a week, I obviously haven't improved because I'm just doing the same thing. Or is 1% improvement reading 10 more pages of a book? Is 1% improvement improving my journaling by a little bit? You know, instead of journaling for 4 sentences, I journal for 5 sentences. Like, you know, it's hard to quantify what that 1% actually means because if anything, I'm just repeating the same habits. Does reading, like I say, them extra 10 pages means I'm 10 pages deeper into the book? I know 10 pages more of knowledge, you could say maybe. You know, it's hard to quantify what it means. So if anything, should we be saying to people, you know, as much as you should be, maybe personally, again, this is all personal, but you should be aiming to improve every single day or weekly or monthly or whatever it is, just in your life in general. But for some people, like we've mentioned, just starting the gym, you know, because what if that changes their life completely? You know, what if going to the gym makes them physically, you know, healthier? That avoids something down the line where they would have had to go to hospital because of whatever foods they're eating, whatever. Like, you can't quantify what that is as a percentage, you know. So I just think overall, me right now and the habits that I do kind of like every single day, I wouldn't know what 1% improvement is. I wouldn't even know if I improve 1% every single day. Again, it's hard to quantify it as a thing. All I know is a journal, I read, 10 pages, maybe 15 pages. Not every day I read the same. And I just try and repeat the same habits. If anything, repeating the same habits and trying to have not a perfect day, but a good day is good enough for me. And who knows, maybe in 6 months I might add a new habit in. Maybe in a year's time I might add a new habit in. But right now I'm quite happy with everything I've got. And I'm more focused on maintaining them good habits as opposed to constant improvement. I've got to improve by 1%, I've got to improve, I've got to do something extra today. Because if anything, that sometimes can lead you backwards on the path where you're constantly wanting to improve. So instead of improving 1%, you end up going backwards a little bit because you're trying to do too many different things at once. You know, so if anything, you should be, let's say, improve your life by 20%. Let's just say that is drinking water. Again, I don't know what a percentage that is. You could say it's 100. If you only drink water from now to the moment that it's the end, what is that as a percentage? You know, you've made a big, massive life change. You're drinking probably the best drink on earth. But either way, you get a little bit too obsessive with constantly adding things in. It becomes too much. And then you might have a breakout and a week off the gym or 2 weeks off the gym. I just need a bit of time away. And then before you know it, them all them 1% you've built up have all backfired. So overall, again, the saying, the sentence, whatever it is, it's a good rule of thumb in a way to constantly seek improvement. But in a way, I think if you take it too literal and you constantly look for fine margins to improve every single day, by the way, I'm not just saying over the year. I think over the year, you look now and again, oh, I could improve there, I could improve there. But if you're looking every single day and every single week at what can I improve tiny, tiny bits, it would just get too draining. And I'm not just on about one little thing. You know, Cristiano Ronaldo with football. What can I improve with dribbling? That's so niche. That's such a little thing. Whereas if you imagine that, but on a bigger scale, on your whole life, everything would just be constant improvement. I can't do it that way. I need to do better. I need to do better. I need to do better. Sometimes you just keep something at a good standard, and then after a couple of weeks, after a couple of months, you might go, you know what? I could do that a little bit better. I could go to the next level. So I just, again, it's just too hard to quantify what these kind of improvements are in people's lives. You know, again, in terms of reading, someone reading who's never read a book before, doesn't really read, might start reading about quantum physics or something to do with Africa or Germany, and they might get really interested. The next minute they get a job in Germany and they start working there and they move there and they start a whole new life. Again, far down the rabbit hole, but it's possible. What is that as a percentage? You cannot quantify it. So overall, like I say, I think the saying is good, but when took a little bit too literal, it can just get people a little bit carried away.